بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum. Today it is Tuesday, the 22nd of June 2021, and in our series Reflections on the Holy Quran, this is broadcast number 225, in which we are discussing verse 87 of Surah Baqarah, second chapter of the Holy Quran, and this is the 10th broadcast regarding that verse of the Holy Quran. I want to apologize for the fact that we could not broadcast yesterday. I had announced the broadcast, but then we had problems at the last minute. So we had to abandon our attempts. Just to remind you that the Lahore Ahmadiyya community was established by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib. And he taught us that although some people bring a new prophet, some people bring an old prophet after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, the Quran says that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was Khatamun Nabiyyi. And the Holy Prophet himself explained that by saying, La Nabi Abad, no prophet after me. So that means no prophet, neither old nor new, can now come. When the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this to the companions, anhum, they were surprised, shocked. They said, Ya Rasulullah, prophet after prophet came to the Israelites, and they would still keep going astray. What will happen to our ummah? And the Holy Prophet said that God will appoint Mujaddideen. And that's the important thing to remember. Not that someone did something and in our opinion what he did was good, so we make him a Mujaddid. And there were two great personalities mentioned in the Hadith, and that was the Messiah and Mahdi. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad taught us that they were actually titles for a particular Mujaddid, and that Mujaddid was he. He also pointed out that obviously this is a difference of opinion between Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis, but he said we shouldn't be calling each other kafirs because of these differences. And because he referred to a hadith of the Holy Prophet, which said that if one reciter of the kalima says to another reciter of the kalima that you are a heretic, then it is the person saying it who becomes a heretic. People also believe that some of the prophetic revelation, like Surah Walayat or Ayah Rajim, are missing from the Holy Quran. But even Hazrat Shah Waliullah said that Muslims of his time said that more than 500 verses of the Holy Quran were abrogated. But Hazrat Shah Waliullah said that he's looked at them and he's reduced the number to 7. The 7 verses of the Holy Quran are abrogated. But Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ali and Hazrat Nasir Maud Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, they showed that no verse of the Holy Quran was, is, or ever shall be abrogated. This is God's work. So how can it become abrogated? And Hazrat Sahib laid great stress on the fact that jihad is a duty of every Muslim. But he said we should take the definition of jihad from the hadith of the Holy Prophet Muhammad and not base it on something that some Maulana announces. And he said, the Holy Prophet Muhammad said, when returning from fighting, the Holy Prophet Muhammad said that we return from Jihad-e-Sagir, the minor struggle, to Jihad-e-Kabir, the major struggle. And then went on to explain that that major struggle is a fight against our own negative thoughts and desires. So, as I said, we are looking at chapter 2, verse 87. So let's turn to that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى الْكِتَابَ وَكَفَّيْنَا مِنْ بَعْدِهِ بِالرُّسُلِ وَآتَيْنَا عِيسَى ابْنَ مَرْيَمَ الْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَيَّدْنَاهُ بِرُوحِ الْقُدُسِ أَفَكُلَّمَا جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ بِمَا لَا تَهْوَىٰ أَنفُسُكُمُ اسْتَكْبَرْتُمْ فَفَرِيقًا كَذَّبْتُمْ وَفَرِيقًا تَقْتُلُونَ صدق Allah al-Azim. And we indeed gave Moses the book, and we sent messengers after him, one after another. And we gave Jesus, son of Mary, clear arguments and strengthened him with the Holy Spirit. Is it then that whenever there comes to you a messenger with what your souls desire not, you were arrogant, and some you gave the lie to, and others you would slay. So today we are going to look at the word that we were going to look at yesterday. Astakbar. Astakbar. So let us, as we do every time, if I can find my notes, which is always a problem. Where are we? Where are we? Here we are. So the root of the word is kaf ba ra, and it occurs in the Holy Quran 161 times with 18 different meanings. So in 18 different words are derived from this triliteral root. 40 times it occurs as istakbara, a verb. And again, 40 times, it occurs as kabir. 24 times, it occurs as akbar. And then 8 times, it occurs as kabura. And then less than that, 7 times as kabirat, and then mustakbir 6 times, and so on. And basically, it has in it, the concept is big. It can be big in numbers, big in status, big in difficulty, and so on. So, as a verb, to be great, kabura, maqtan indallahi. Great is to magnify. Wa rabbaka fakabbir, and magnify. To admire. Akbarnahu. Chapter 12, verse 31. He greatly admired him. And then, of course, something that you and I and all humans do, be arrogant. Chapter 7, verse 13. Tatakabbara. You were arrogant. Yatakabbaruna fil earth, are arrogant on earth. So there are two forms. One form is that, then wastakbara, and was arrogant. Chapter 2, verse 34. And this is referring to, what is it referring to? Iblis. Illa Iblisa abaya wastakbara wa kana min al-kafirin. And he was arrogant, and he refused God's command. And most use is in the sense of pride, proudness, arrogance, as in chapter 74, verse 23. Thumma adbara wastakbara, and was proud, haughty, arrogant. And of course, another word is as a noun, it means greater. Faqad sa'alu Musa akbara, greater. Wal fitnatu akbaru minal qatli, greater evil, fitna. And then as an adjective, specifies what a noun is like. Yawmal Hajjil Akbari, the greater the greater pilgrimage. In chapter 9, verse 3. And Makaru Makran Kabara, chapter 71, verse 23. Great or greater, etc. And also it applies to age. Someone gets old. The old age, old man. It applies to status. Fakubara ana in chapter 33, verse 67, and it applies there to people, are great men, are leaders. And again, وَلَهُ الْكِبْرِيَاءُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. The greatness is signified here. Chapter 45, verse 37. Again, another form of adjective, وَفَسَادًا كَبِيرًا. Chapter 8, verse 73. The great calamity. Yawmin Kabir, the great day. And so on. And form of وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ, great difficulty, great test. Chapter 2, verse 143. وَإِن كَانَتْ لَكَبِيرَةٌ, the great trial, etc. So I won't go through. And then arrogant, not as an adjective, but as a noun. Mutakabbirin, in chapter 16, verse 29, and chapter 39, verse 60, etc. Mutakabbiri, haughty person. So, in fact, two words, Kabir and Sagir, you can take together in a way. And they determine each other's meaning. To give you one example, there's a football match and there are two teams. One team has 10,000 fans in the stadium, the other one has 5,000. So those 10,000 are Kabir, they're greater. And then they have the next match. And this team still has 10,000 supporters who turn up, but their opponents have 20,000. But what was Kabir in the last match has now become Sagir. What was greater has become lesser. So the same thing, depending on the circumstances, can be greater or smaller. But I mean, to make the point, I've used an easy example of numbers, but it can also apply to sort of kind of quality. قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ, chapter 2, verse 290. Warn them, or tell them, قُل, but it's a warning. Warn them that their harm is great. The harm, obviously, you can't say one harm, two harm, three harm. So it's a quality of how much damage is going to be done. You could say that it's like a metaphor. For example, لا يغادر صغيرة ولا كبيرة إلا أخفاها, chapter 18, verse 49. That neither something small nor something big will be left. Or the verse that I did recite, Yawm al-Hajjil Akbari, chapter 9, verse 3. The day of Hajji Akbar, the bigger Hajj, the greater Hajj. And the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself referred to this when he said, Al-Umratu hiyal Hajjul Asgharu. That Umrah is a Hajj, but it's a minor Hajj. And the Quran also uses the same word for age. Imma yablughanna indaqal kabira ahaduhuma. Chapter 17, verse 23. When someone gets to a big age, kibarat, an old age, wa afabahul kibaru. Chapter 2, verse 266. When old age grabs him. So, I suppose you could say that this is with reference to counting the number of years that you're alive. But you can see that wherever this word is used, the sense is that something is big. And it could be big for any reason. Could be big because of the job status. For example, chapter 6, verse 19. Ask them, who's the best witness? And tell them that God will be the witness between us. Qul ayyu shay'in akbaru shahadatan. See, this is God's greatness, that He is the great. Chapter 13, verse 9. Al-Kabirul Mata'al. He is the one with the highest station, the most dignified. So you can see here it is to do with the station. But it can qualify. For example, chapter 6, verse 123, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا فِي كُلِّ قَرِيَّةٍ أَقَابِرَ مُجْرِمِيهَا. And in every town, there are people who are big criminals. I've just translated that in English, big. I'm sure there's a more suitable words. There are more suitable words, but offhand I can't think of one. But you can see that, a big criminal would be, as opposed to shoplifting a Mars bar, he's probably going around robbing people or killing people and so on. But it also means chiefs, teachers. Innahu lakabiru kumullazi allamakumus sihr. Chapter 20, verse 71. There's no doubt that your leader, your big person, your teacher, he is the person who's taught you magic. So Kabira can also mean chief, but it also applies to sins. Al-Kabiratu is singular, Al-Kabairu is plural. Allazina yajtanibuna kabairal ismi wal fawahisha illallama. Chapter 53, verse 32. That apart from small sins, minor sins, they engage in major fawahisha, major indecency and sins. Ismi, kabaira, big serious. Ismi, sins and indecency. And some say that kabair actually specifically means shirk, that is to associate someone else with God in his majesty and dignity. Because in chapter 31, verse 13, it says, inna shirka la zulmun azim. Here, shirk, associating someone with God, is called the greatest injustice. But some people say it only means that some people say that yes, shirk is included, but it's amongst other major sins, wrong things, and so on. Inna qatlahum kana khit'an kabiran. Chapter 17, verse 31. Undoubtedly, their killing was a serious error, sin. Khit'an kabira. Urdu speaking people would know. It's easy for them. The word khita, mistake, wrongdoing, comes from that. And this word also applies to something that people find difficult. وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. Chapter 2, verse 45. There's no doubt that prayer is difficult for them, except for those who are humble. Or kabura alal mushrikina ma tad'uhum ilayhi. Chapter 42, verse 30. That the mushrikeen, those, the idol worshippers, they find it, what you're calling them to, they find it very hard. Mubarak kalimatan, chapter 18, verse 5. This is a serious thing that's being said. They say badi baat. And of course, it's used for God's majesty and greatness. Ilikbo rummahum bibali akhi. Chapter 40, verse 56. That you cannot attain to his greatness. And then, of course, we have al-istikbar. And you can have two things. One is that what you're claiming is true. And, I am the best surgeon, lawyer, teacher, whatever. And it is true. Then it's okay. But most people use it as an exaggeration to deceive others. And then it becomes a sin. And the first being to do that was, of course, the devil. Aba was takbara, chapter 2, verse 34. But Satan was arrogant. He denied it. And of course, there is this verse itself. Um, and of course, then it also applies to um, the fact that people display pride in their country, in their nation, and so on. As mentioned in chapter 35, verse 43, and chapter 46, verse 20, etc. Or chapter 7, verse 40. Inna lazina kazzabu bi ayatina wastakbaru anha. And they reject our signs, our messages. Wastakbar. And or chapter 7, verse 48. Ma aghna ankum jam'ukum wa ma kuntum tastakbiru. And today, nothing was help you. Not your numbers, not your arrogance. So you can see that it can also one. I think I'll stop after two more things. One is that it's the opposite of chiefs of a nation. Like in chapter 7, verse 75. قال الملأ الذين نستكبروا من قومه للذين استضعفوا. So the leaders, the chiefs who were arrogant, said to the people. And that one verse encapsulates the condition of literally every country where Muslims are in a majority. That the leaders, whether they are, whatever they are arrogant. I'm sorry, I need to plug in my laptop before it dies on me. I didn't notice that the battery was low. There we are. Although we're not going to continue for long. But still. And of course, I want to end with a takabburu. And we know takbir. When we're about to pray, people say takbir. Then we say Allahu Akbar. So in fact, this word stands for someone who has every good quality, or whose good qualities exceed the good qualities in others. And of course, when we say Allahu Akbar, then that means that God exceeds the whole of the universe in these good qualities. In chapter 59, verse 23, it says, Al-Azizul Jabbarul Mutakabbiru. Chapter 59, verse 23. That He is the greatest. He overcomes everything. No one can get close to him, and so on. There's a lot more depth and breadth in this word, but we've already had 40 minutes, and usually people's attention span is about 3 minutes. So I salute those who've struggled with me for 40 minutes. Obviously, you are determined to help me improve my knowledge of the Holy Quran by encouraging me with these broadcasts by being logged on here. But I will end here. I think we could easily have 3 broadcasts, 40 minutes on just this one word. And this is, I've said repeatedly, that in a year we've only got to verse 87 of chapter 2. If we think about the Holy Quran, this is why the Holy Quran keeps saying, reflect, reflect, think, how much more we could learn. But I take my leave of you with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep all of you safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.